I'd like to talk about some stuff I found on the PAS database while working as a finds officer. And I think it is a group of brooches that can speak quite interestingly about the use of art and identity in dress fittings in the 1st century BC, sort of during the Roman conquest. So I think it can shed light on how people saw themselves, during a time when they were being brought into the Roman world more or less willingly, shall we say. So this really is pushing the definition of late prehistory into very, very late prehistory. But we should probably talk about first what a birdlip brooch is before I talk about the subtype of it. So birdlip brooches, they are a type of brooch. They're named for the birdlip burial found in Gloucestershire, which is a very rich Iron Age burial of a woman, I believe, buried with a fantastic latten mirror, glass beads, vessels, and a silver brooch, which this brooch has been used to name a whole subtype of brooches. These brooches are defined generally by having this little lip on the bow, or a beak, as it's sometimes thought of. And they're a very widely varied type in their forms. As you can see by these two, we've got the one from Market Raisin up here. So you can get them in precious metals such as gold or silver, as the birdlip burial birdlip brooches, confusing to say, and utilizing latten art on the catch plate here. But you can get them all down to this large pointy copper alloy example from Dinas Powys in the Vale of Glamorgan.
Sorry, George.
I've always thought this one looks...
Sorry to cut in. We're just seeing a couple of like grey rectangles on the shared screen there. I think where the
So they're not, the photo's not showing up.
The photos are showing up. The we can see the PowerPoint. It's just that there's these little sort of grey boxes over it. I need to Sorry about this.
I don't know. No, it's all right. Sorry, I'm not sure why that is.
Oh, well, there you go. It looks like the larger boxes are gone away. Oh no, sorry, it's just gone to the top. If there's any way to minimize that, I think we should be fine with the smaller grey box.
I don't know what that is. I can't see it on my screen, but I can see it on the shared screen.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I have no idea why that is.
Where like our videos, etc., are coming up.
Yeah, sorry, I don't really know how to fix that. But I hopefully,
no worries. I don't think it is covering anything too important.
Yes, hopefully not.
Sorry about that.
Try and move the screen. No worries, George. So yeah, so they're very varied in form, but they all have this hooked or lipped thing on them. Some of them look more like Roman trumpet brooches, which are probably a later development, and use these bilateral springs, which are sometimes integral to them, or they can have these little hinged pins here. I've always thought this one looks a bit like Sonic the Hedgehog. They are generally dated to between 30 and 60 AD. So very much taking place in a time when brooch forms in Britain are really exploding in their variety, with new forms coming in from the continent and being adapted and adopted by local people. Yes, birdlip brooches, they do have regional distribution, but it's quite widespread and has sort of clusters. Particularly in there's East Anglia, Lincolnshire, all the way down to the sort of lower Severn Valley, and into the West Country as well. Not many in the southeast. This is all from PAS data, this regionality that I'm touring on. So yeah, so what we see next, yeah, so this is the first one that I recognized on the brooch of this new group, which for reasons that I hope will become obvious, I have, at the suggestion of my friend Tom, named the Cowslip Brooch Group. And I hope you'll see why later. It's not obvious from this picture yet, but I think it's quite exciting the way that it does depict zoomorphic forms. So hopefully you can see that it's similar to the two birdlip brooches, and it still has this hooked projection on the moulding on the head, but instead of a hook or a beak, it's become this sort of nose with two nostril indentations that you can see here. They're very consistent in form. So far, I found 4 of them, 3 of which are basically complete. They are also very consistent in their attachment mechanisms, which are all these single perforated lugs, presumably used to attach an iron or copper alloy bilateral spring. They are not huge brooches, 51 to 61 millimeters long, and they all have this flat, slightly recurving bow with a solid catch plate, the ones that have a surviving catch plate and bow at least. And they all have this incised decoration on the bow and the head moulding, where that's visible. So it has been noted by myself and others in PS records of these that this incised decoration on the bow is probably more indicative of early Roman date. It's something that you do get incised decoration on Iron Age brooches, but it's qualitatively different in the way it's executed. This would normally be thought of as Iron Age. 2 of these also have white metal coating, which could be silver or tin, and they're all made of copper alloy. Here is the current corpus, which you can't see because there's that black box in the way at the top, the words current corpus, but there's 4 of them. And it shows, I think, an interesting regional distribution so far. We have 2 of these brooches, which are very similar to one another, coming from Monmouthshire, about 5 miles apart, and another 2 from Worcestershire and Shropshire, respectively. As you can see, the one I showed you originally has a very different head. It's got the same moulding on the lower part of the head moulding, but the actual back has a plate with a projecting knop at the top, whereas the others have these sort of lentoid mouldings that, if you look along them, slightly reminds me of looking at a hippo. I don't think it's depicting a hippo, mind. I think you can see how these are very similar along there. And I wonder, the addition of this composite chain loop used as the axis bar on the bilateral spring that survives on this one, the only one that has a surviving spring. I wonder if that is what this projecting plate is imitating. It's a sort of vestigial remnant. So the distribution, as I mentioned, I think you might not be able to see the top one, unfortunately, but I can possibly... no, I can't, sorry. But so we've got the 2 from Monmouthshire. They're both found on high ground, so about 100 meters or more in elevation. One of which, this one, is near an extremely rich Roman site, which has been reported through metal detecting to myself and my colleagues in PAS Cymru, which hopefully will develop a research project in. It may be the site of a temple or a villa, but no, we've had no progress on access to the land so far. This one is from a little bit further away, but also high ground. Neither of them noticeably near water courses, and the same with these ones. Though if you were to pour water on the ground where they were found, that water would eventually make its way into the river Severn estuary. I did consider naming this group the Severn watershed group, but I think that might be a little bit hubristic, seeing as you never know when another one might come up somewhere else entirely. But for now, I think it is an interesting distribution, especially with this cluster here of 2. I'm not sure if you can call that a cluster, but perhaps that points to it being a regional workshop that's producing these, and it was able to be transported up the Severn and its tributaries. They're all very easily accessible and navigable, or whether it's associated with the known tribes in the area, such as the Silures or the Debunny here, and up into the, I think, Corioltavi and Cornovi, possibly, though I'm not sure if anyone's entirely certain who is nominally in control of this area during the time period. None of them are associated with wetlands. They're all reasonably close to hill forts, though I think that may say more about how many hill forts there are than the brooches themselves. So, sorry, right, there we go. So these are the Welsh examples, just a bit closer up, so you can have a look at them and get the reference numbers, so you can look them up yourselves on the PAS database. As you can see, they've got this nose moulding. They've got slightly different inside things on the bow, with this little projecting simple foot at the bottom. And here are the West Midlands examples from Worcestershire and Shropshire. Again, with this very different incised mouldings and probably a projecting foot there. And this one, sadly, not very well preserved, and was originally recorded on the PAS database as a trumpet brooch, which I can understand, because I think this was the first one to be recorded of this group. So zoomorphic brooches in the Iron Age and early Roman period, I thought it'd be good to sort of get a little bit of context from other things on the PAS database. You can see you have this very perspective-based. My colleague Dr. Adele Bricking, recorded this. It has little nose mouldings here. As you can see, this is a trumpet brooch, so it's different again, but I think will be interesting to compare with the other brooches later. When I'm talking about the zoomorphic moulding, you've got this one again, which has a very sort of perspective-based Iron Age, very much a latin style, possibly a horse. Adele also recorded this. Lovely one, but this is quite probably later, probably 2nd century. And this very odd birdlip brooch, which I would not include in this group, though it seems to be a one-off, and it's from Lancashire, I believe, possibly depicting a ram or a cow. So I hope you can see, although it may be, sorry, this might be easier to see it now. So I hope you can see that I think the zoomorphic decoration on this group of brooches shows a huge amount of subjectivity, in that the brooch moulding is not obviously zoomorphic, as you could see from the previous examples that I've shown of these brooches. It doesn't look obviously zoomorphic, but when we know that brooches in this period, they were worn generally with what we call the foot pointing upwards on the chest to fasten a cloak or tunic, or simply as decoration. And when you look at the brooch down the foot, as it would be if it was sat on your chest, you can see this very clear cow head outline. And I think it's really interesting that it's almost cryptic or subjective, as I said, that you only get this this view of a cow that I think is deeply rooted in the experience of being around cows. If you've ever seen a cow, if you've ever been around cows and they look at you and they're curious, they will point their nose at you and lift their head up. And you get this view down the face of the cow. And I think that when you're looking at this, when the wearer was looking at the brooch from this direction, that the bow of the brooch forms the tongue of the cow, and cows are often sticking their tongues out, blowing a raspberry, perhaps. I think perhaps this could be a private joke. just something humorous for people to have a little cow looking up at them when they look down, or it could speak to other Iron Age art, such as this bowl from not far away from the cluster in Monmouthshire, the Llantrisant hoard, recently declared treasure at inquest, and I was lucky enough to help excavate it along with some of my colleagues. And it included this wonderful cow bowl with either a tongue or it biting onto the handle. But I think you can see continuity of forms in zoomorphic art in the 1st century AD, with cows sticking their tongues out, essentially. We got some more cows with their tongues out, recorded from the PAS database. You can see they're very commonly used on escutcheons from buckets and bowls. And yes, sorry, I'm slightly running out of time, but I think the questions about what does this mean to people? Why are they choosing to wear these cows, and how does it relate to the other pieces of material culture at the time? So yeah, and how are they using this to display their identity with this mixture of Roman and Iron Age forms that is developing not just in these brooches but across material culture in Britain in the 1st century AD? And I think it's also, I'd like to explore who perhaps produced them, to try and analyze them to see if they are made from the same mold, the same model, or whether they are just a sort of group produced with a continuity of form. I hopefully in the future I will be able to get borrow the initial brooch 1 from Monmouthshire, the silvered one, and do some material analysis to see what the alloy composition might be, what the coating was. The others are probably no longer accessible, but I have a personal contact with the finder of that. So yeah, hopefully some answers can come from that. And I think it'd be interesting to compare the distribution of these and any future ones that I find from searching in collections and archives with known material culture using cows and their tongues sticking with their tongues sticking out. Anyway, yeah, I think that's about it. Thanks very much. Any questions?